What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about karma. And you already see from the title and the thumbnail, the claim that it says there is that Christianity and the Bible teaches karma. But let me just say right off the bat, that's not completely true. Actually, it's not true at all. But this is where things get a little interesting and where words and definitions are so important. Because what people think karma is, the Bible kind of teaches that. But what karma is in actuality, Christianity and the Bible does not line up with it at all. Okay? So I want to make that completely clear right from the get-go. The Bible does not teach karma. But a lot of people think they know what karma is. And the Bible kind of does teach some of those principles. Kind of. So let's jump right into it. What do people think karma is? Again, this is not what karma actually is, but what do people think when they're talking about karma? Okay, usually when people are thinking about karma or they use the word karma, it's usually maybe they see a friend do something they shouldn't be doing, like, oh man, you cut that person off. Somebody else is going to cut you off later today. Or maybe if they cheat on a test, you're like a math test in school, hey, you cheated on a test, you're going to get cheated later on in life. Okay? That's kind of this idea of what goes around comes around. And it's not one-to-one completely as far as the Bible teaches, but the Bible does teach the principle of you reap what you sow, okay? Again, reaping and sowing, it is not a one-to-one in the sense where people will say, oh, you got cut off in your car, or you cut someone else off in your car, you're going to get cut off later. That's not what the Bible teaches, but it does teach you reap what you sow. In other words, our actions have consequences, okay? That is a biblical principle. And when people refer to karma, they sometimes mean that simple truth, that actions have consequences. Okay, let me go over a few verses that talk about this principle. First, Galatians 6, verse 7 and 8. It says this, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." Verse 8, "For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption. But he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life." Okay? Those two verses are beautiful. They sum up this principle awesomely, basically saying if you sow in an area that is fleshly and ungodly, you're going to reap fruits that are also ungodly and just that you wouldn't want in your life. And then similarly, if you reap or if you sow into things that are of spiritual nature, like praying, worshiping the Lord, you will reap later on in life. What does it say? It says, verse 8, "He who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life." So ultimately, if we do put our faith in God, the ultimate thing that we are going to reap is everlasting life. Okay? In other words, our actions do have real consequences, okay? Simple as that. We reap what we sow. Again, some people, when they think of karma, they are simply thinking of that principle, which actually is not karma. It's the biblical principle. We reap what we sow. Okay, a couple other verses that highlight this principle. Colossians 3:25 says, "Anyone who does wrong will be repaid for his wrong, and there is no favoritism." So back to that, poor driving example. If you cut somebody off, maybe you won't be repaid by someone else cutting you off. But hey, if a police officer sees you doing an illegal traffic violation, you very well may be repaid for your action. There will be a consequence for that action. Again, the Bible's not saying it's exactly one-to-one, like some people will say that are incorrectly talking about karma, but you reap what you sow. That is a biblical principle. Okay, now let's talk about what karma actually is, okay? Because we've already discussed that people refer to karma as something that it isn't. They're just referring to reaping and sowing without realizing it. But to better understand this principle, we need to talk about what karma actually is, okay? Because words and definitions are extremely important, okay? What is karma? It does have to do with actions, okay? That portion of karma is similar to reaping and sowing. Reaping and sowing says if you do something, there will be a consequence, either good or bad, depending on what the previous action was. Okay, karma also does have to do with your actions have consequences, but it's not as simple as that. Besides the fact that karma says, yes, good actions will reap good consequences, bad actions will reap bad consequences, it's actually your actions in your current life will reap either good or bad actions in your next life. So it's talking about reincarnation. And this idea that if I live this life as myself right now, if I'm good in this life, my next life will be good. And if I'm a terrible person in this life right now, my next life will be bad. That principle is completely false, completely not in the Bible. And that is what karma is really talking about. It's talking about how our actions affect our future lives. Okay? Reincarnation is not taught in the Bible. It's a false doctrine. And if you ever were to hear somebody proclaiming to be Christian that teaches reincarnation, that would be a huge immediate red flag. So keep an ear out for that if you're in a funky church. But let's bring a verse into this to make sure that we are actually talking about what is biblical. Okay, because my claim is that reincarnation is not biblical, but here's a verse that supports that. It is Hebrews 9, verses 27 and 28. It says this, "And as it is appointed for men to die once, but after this the judgment, so Christ was offered once to bear the sins of many. To those who eagerly wait for him, he will appear a second time apart from sin for salvation." So the second part of Hebrews, verses 27 and 28, is talking about Christ's second coming. But the first part of that passage, it is affirming that men die once. Again, it says, "And as it is appointed for men to die once," and then ... It says the rest of the verse. So the author of Hebrews is saying and confirming people die once. They're not reborn and die a second time. They die once. So with that being said, now that we know that karma in the total doctrine of karma has to do with reincarnation, we can confidently say that karma is not biblical. Okay, so let's wrap this up. What is the conclusion? A lot of people say karma, but they're not referring to reincarnation. They're not referring to my next life and my next life. I want to make sure my future lives are benefited. Some people are referring to that. Some people do know what karma means and are referring to their quote unquote future lives. But I think it's safe to say that a lot, if not most people that use the word karma to refer to an action having a consequence, they're not thinking about reincarnation. They're just, whether they realize it or not, they're talking about reaping and sowing. And that principle is biblical. Again, words are so important. Definitions are so important. So please be aware of the things that you're saying, the definitions of the words that you use, because it's very easy to get things twisted or to go down rabbit trails of thought or of theology that, are starting from something that's not even the right definition. Okay, so with that being said, I hope that this video blessed you. If you want more videos like this, please subscribe. And I'm always posting videos that have to do with Christian worldview, the Bible, and just tackling difficult things in general. So thank you guys. God bless, and see you in the next one. Peace.